listening to the Marketing Personalities Podcast, a podcast for growth-minded entrepreneurs that serves up valuable insight and interviews about aligning your marketing strategy with your personality type. Because here's the deal. You shouldn't have to feel fake and salesy in order to grow your business. And you no longer have to. Your marketing strategy can feel good to implement and it can work. You can attract the right clients and customers to your business and grow your profits, all while staying true to who you naturally are. So in the name of honest business growth, bring your unique talents, perspectives, and personality to the table. And join us on this week's podcast episode to discover marketing that feels good for you. Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Personalities Podcast. I'm Brit Kolo, your host, and I'm here today with Mary Claveires, who is the founder of the Transitions Collective. Mary, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Brit. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. You know, listeners, Mary and I first connected because I was on her podcast a few weeks ago, the Fearless Business Podcast. And we had such a great conversation that then led into, after we were done recording, we started talking about Mary's marketing personality type, got into such a rich conversation about her being an ESFJ. And I just said, listen, we haven't had an ESFJ on the podcast yet, and I think you're the girl to do it. I think this is the conversation we need to put a pin in and take over to the Marketing Personalities Podcast. So that's why she's here. And I'm so excited to finally have an ESFJ to bring on the podcast that can really speak to these things that I think if you are an ESFJ, or maybe you work with a lot of ESFJs and you're listening in to try to understand this specific personality type, there's no way you're not going to resonate with this, because I think Mary I think she articulates this so well. So like I said, we're going to talk about her ESFJ marketing personality type, how it affects her marketing strategy. And then we're going to dig into two things that I see ESFJs commonly bringing up and having questions about. I don't want to say struggling with, because that's not fair, but these things that I think in the common marketing language and the common marketing conversation, where that a lot of people are like, yeah, I'll totally do that. ESFJs are like, that doesn't feel good to me. And we're going to talk about those two things. And just to kind of give you a preview, the two things that we're really going to talk about are the need for organization and having your ducks in a row before you publish something, and the ESFJ's natural rebellion against niching, or if you're cooler than me, niching. Okay? It's a very common conversation, and we're going to have it right here with an ESFJ who naturally doesn't really want a niche or a niche, right? If you're cooler than me. So we're going to dig into all that. But before we do that, you've got to get to know Mary, right? So, hey, Mary, welcome to the podcast. Tell us about your entrepreneurial life right now and what you have your hands in.
Okay, so there's a few different things, but the main thing, and mostly why we're talking here today, is because I run a membership community for mom entrepreneurs that are building businesses from the ground up and also raising families. We offer accountability and support and resources for women that are in this very particular time of their life of raising kids and running a business.
And that business is called the Transitions Collective, which I think is beautiful because within that mom entrepreneur existence, I guess, there's a lot of transition that goes on, right? I have to imagine.
So much.
Yeah.
Yes. It first started with me even transitioning from corporate. So a couple of years ago, I was in pharmaceutical manufacturing for about 15 years, and I transitioned out of that to work on my businesses full time. And then the transitions of motherhood, I mean, that's just huge in and of itself. And then the transitions through that with children growing and businesses growing, I think you're always in a transition of some kind for something in life, whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm. So your community is coming in to support mom entrepreneurs through those transitions. Take us into how you provide that support, because you've termed it like a community. What does that actually look like? What does it mean to be a part of the Transitions Collective?
So we are a community. It's actually a paid membership community, and we meet both online. I mean, 24/7 for what it's worth since it's online.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have an in-person component to it too. So anyone that's local to Northern New Jersey or New York can also join us for monthly meetups. So the
Oh.
group actually started, we'll probably get into some of this too, but the group actually started as me looking for other moms building businesses. So I have another business actually called Brief Transitions, again with the transitions theme, and I sell postpartum mesh underwear. So as I was building Brief Transitions and I still had my corporate job and I had two young girls at home, I was wondering if I was the only one out there doing all these things. And I kind of posed the question and asked if anyone wanted to meet up in person. So we started as a free meetup group and kind of grew from that over the last 2.5, 3 years or so.
Wow.
Yeah. So we offer that as part of membership too now. And then there's also a member portal. We have calls. I have monthly calls with experts to talk about different business topics. And we have founder feedback calls where we get into smaller groups like breakout rooms, and people ask specific questions like a struggle that they're going through with their business, and the other members give them feedback real time. Because it's more about like, how can we all leverage our experiences and what we've done, like the variety of our backgrounds, and help support each other through whatever they're going through.
So I hear a couple of things. The first thing I want to ask about is the Transitions Collective. It didn't really start as a business. It sounds like you had your corporate job, you had your side hustle, Brief Transitions, and then you went looking for community support. And that looking for community support then led you to develop it, not as a business though. Take us more into the birth point of this whole thing, because it sounds very ESFJ to me, but I want to know more details.
Okay. Because it's been like a long road of basically me discovering more about myself is how I kind of think of it. So so it started as a free meetup group because I had so many other things on my plate and what I was doing. You know, I was passionate about growing the underwear business, which I still am, and I still have that.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, I just kind of fell in love with this group in terms of like building relationships with all these other women and supporting each other. And I just felt like that is something that I just really loved to do. Like if I could do anything with my time, I was in the Facebook group. So we had a free Facebook group. We still do have a free Facebook group. And then there's also the paid community has a separate one.
Mm-hmm.
I would be in the free Facebook group, like, I don't know, posting motivational things, like responding to people's questions or tagging other people, all that kind of stuff, like all the time, you know? So it kind of grew out of that. And I've tried a lot of different things over the years just to see what would be most helpful to people and what they wanted the most. I had events. I had both like events workshop style and events mastermind style, like one day masterminds where everyone fills out some pre-work and then they come together as a group to work through like one of their strategies in their business. I ran an accountability group, like a 8-week program. So I tried a variety of things before this past September. In September 2019, I launched the paid membership community.
And something else that I wanted to understand a little bit more is the fact that within the Transitions Collective, as it is today, it sounds like there's this heavy dose of, for lack of a better word, collective support rather than all of these people relying on you, Mary, to teach them everything they need to know. It's more about, no, we're coming together to help each other. And so you're getting and you're giving as a member of this collective.
1000%. I'm actually, it's actually in my email copy, like it's in my copy for marketing. Like it literally says, this is not a Mary grows your business or Mary coaches you. I forget exactly how I said it, but it's not that type of group. It is not Mary is in charge and telling you all what to do. It's really, we're all coming together because I truly believe we all have something to give and we can all learn from each other. Like that is how we are most powerful, is when we come together and support each other that way. So I'm happy to hear that you heard that or felt that from everything, because that's definitely what it's all about.
And that's so beautiful because now I'm going to build a bridge between what you just shared with us and the ESFJ marketing personality types. So our listeners can experience the light bulbs of connection that I'm experiencing because I already know the ESFJ marketing personality type. So everything you're saying, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's genius. That is literally perfect for you. And for the listeners who are like, wait, I don't know that yet. Let me build the bridge here. So let me teach the ESFJ. Well, let me teach anybody who's listening about the ESFJ personality type. First of all, the ESFJ type is known as the console. Okay. And so that word starts to get you thinking like, as a console, you are a friend. And I see ESFJs making friends everywhere they go. And they're not doing it intentionally, they're not doing it even on purpose. This is just who they are. and
Yeah.
and then also, if you've been following along with the podcast, learning more about how these personality types are made up of these 4 preferences, you might have noticed that with Mary's letters, ESFJ, she's got that second letter S, which stands for observant, meaning she's preferring to pay attention more to external cues than internal cues. And then that J on the end, standing for judging, meaning discerning, can make a decision pretty firmly, prefers closure and not openness, right? And so, or leaving things hanging. So, with this ESFJ combination, she's a part of the Sentinel tribe. Everyone in the Sentinel tribe has those 2 letters, S and J, in common. And so, what that can then tell us is that Mary is order driven. She is people centered. So she's always willing to work with others, be a part of a team, and she has to start with organization. That's her number one. She's not starting with strategy or her mission or putting something into play like the other tribes. She's got to organize and get things in order to move forward and give her best energy to something. And then finally, she loves templates. Templates keep things orderly.
Yes.
And so templates are always fun for her. And with all of that wrapped up together, her best marketing strategy, and what I recommend to all ESFJs, is to find a way to host experiences for your prospects, your future clients, your future customers, with the central focus on enjoyment and friendship. Gathering people together, not necessarily to learn or to teach them, but to make them feel welcome and help them have fun with a healthy dose of support in there. Y'all, do you hear what Mary has done? I mean, she didn't even start the Transitions Collective as a business. She started it just to create some community for herself, right? Which is beautiful, knowing that she needed that in her own personal self-care, and then allowing it to grow, not in a way that then makes her the main teacher and the main person to follow, but in a way that keeps the central focus on enjoyment, friendship, support, right? This equal give and take, right? I just think that's incredible that you've stayed so true to that. I applaud it. And what do you hear in that, Mary? Like, what stands out to you of all that I just kind of downloaded? What do you hear that feels extremely resonant?
So, I mean, I would basically just vigorously nod my head at all of those because they are also applicable to me. But I think the most important part of it that I may have struggled with at the same time, or like it took me a long time to get to, is that yes, I'm people centered, and I'm not comfortable being like the teacher of some sort, like putting myself there. Like for me, it really is about the group. And I think it was for me a hard thing to finally get to, because a lot of the time I think we're told like, okay, follow this person, like they'll teach you about this, and follow that person because they'll teach you about that. And for me, I felt like I never really fit with any of that because it just wasn't me.
That just gave so many people permission to not make it about them, because it doesn't necessarily have to be. I mean, I think a lot of loud marketers out there, and I'm going to raise my hand because I'm an ENFJ and it's totally okay for me to be the center of my own universe, but and be the center of the brand, and people, follow to learn from me. That's okay for me. I'm not an ESFJ though. And so for you as an ESFJ, I would also extend this to, I think this is something that extends into anyone who's in the Sentinel tribe specifically. So if your second letter is an S and last letter is a J, and I think it extends in different ways, right? Because it's not like everyone in the Sentinel tribe is going to resonate exactly with what you just shared, Mary, but there's something about that that's like, yeah, I don't necessarily need to be the guru on the mountaintop. There's more to service than that. And I'm going to serve in a way that allows everyone to serve and be served all at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yes.
that kind of brings up something for me that I would love for you to riff on if you can. Being that you are people centered and deeply committed to service, I believe, and serving others, and also with this observant preference, which is that second letter S, stands for observant, meaning you prefer to pay attention to what's going on around you rather than pay attention to cues going on inside. What has your journey looked like as it relates to self-care? How does that operate for you? Because I've noticed and I'm going to kind of preface this a little bit. I've noticed a trend where people in the Sentinel tribe who have that second letter S kind of struggle with that a little bit because y'all are helping everyone.
Yeah.
And because of your preference to pay attention to what's going on around you, might create an imbalance of knowing when you need your own care. Take me into that. Does that feel true? What's going on there?
Yes, it does feel true. And I have a couple other thoughts too, but definitely I've been working on this for a while. I'd say one, given the personality type, and two, having two young kids at home, time is like a little warped maybe. And so there's always like a reason or an excuse to say like, okay, well, I don't have time for this or I don't have time for that. And I've worked hard over the past little over a year probably, but really the past year. I know it's being used a lot now, like the word boundaries, but really put some things into my routine that help me give time and space for myself. I also don't want to be hard on myself either, right? So like not to the point of like, okay, you have to do all these things every day. But for example, I take my daughters to school in the morning. I drop them off every morning and I take them in my gym clothes. And I usually go straight to the gym or do some type of workout or exercise right after I drop them off. And I've built that into my day. My work day doesn't start until a little bit later, but I'm not a morning person. So I'm not getting up like way before them to go work out and be ready before taking them to school. That's not happening. So self-care is also sleep for me. So I've built in some things like that to help myself have some structure and organization, if you will, around my own routines to take care of myself.
That's liberating. There was a lot in there. It's like you're building it into your workday, which helps with that organization piece. So you know where it belongs. That's not like just happening whenever it can happen. Because if you did that, it wouldn't happen. We know that. And
it wouldn't happen.
You said a line where it's like, I'm doing this without being too hard on myself, which there's something about that balance that is really special and exceptionally difficult that everyone has to approach in their own way, right? Without making it a chore and it really truly allowing it to be care for yourself. And I love also how you said, hey, sleep is self-care too. So I'm taking myself up on that. Very honoring. I love how you explain it. And I think, I had a similar conversation with an ISFJ in the last couple of weeks. And I reminded her, and I actually made a note to say this in this podcast episode. And I want to remind anyone who's in the Sentinel tribe that when it comes to this buzzword of self-care, please remember that you are going to approach self-care from a different place than people who are not in your tribe. I was having this conversation with this ISFJ. She was saying how it seemed so easy for her best friend to incorporate, she said super extra, but like this really healthy drink in the morning. And she would take herself to lunch and she was going through this woman's weekly routine and her best friends. And she's like, it's so easy for her to make that time and then actually take it. It's not only like making the time for it, but then honoring that commitment in your calendar and actually doing it and not working right through that hour that you had planned. And I said, and she's not you. That's okay that she's approaching it in her way and it's working. You're probably going to have to approach it a little differently, and that's fine. Like, let's honor that.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah,
you gave
I
a
love
great
that.
I think you gave a great tip for an ESFJ to maybe identify where it can be organized, if you will, into
Mm-hmm.
the schedule they already have. I think
I
that's a
actually
great
block
first
it.
step.
I block
Okay.
it in my calendar.
Mhm.
So like every morning I know that's what I'm doing.
And smart to say, I'm not waking up and putting my work clothes on. I'm waking up and putting my workout clothes on. And so then it's
Yep.
just prepping your mind. That's an external cue in and of itself. What am I putting on my body that then can get me to the gym?
Right. Because it makes it harder for me to say no if I'm already in
Right.
my clothes, you know?
That just kind of hit a light bulb for me because I, as more of someone who preferences the intuitive, what's going on internally, when I approach self care, I have to like align my mindset to it and I have to align how I'm feeling about it. And like the clothes have never mattered to me. I'm definitely having a light bulb here. You know how some people are like, as long as I have like a really cute workout outfit on, I'll go. I'm like, that has
Mhm.
never held any kind of weight for me. Like, I have the dingiest, ugliest workout clothes, and
Yeah,
I
me
don't
too.
care. I do not care. But I see why, if you might be a more observant person and you like the external, it's like setting the scene, like putting the cute workout clothes on, or just putting workout clothes on in and of themselves can get you into that action that you want to take, and then you take it.
It's like the practical point of like
Yeah.
saving time, knowing that it's next on my to-do list and like a way to hold myself accountable.
I like that. Okay, so
Mm.
now I'd love to take this and kind of pivot into the conversation of organization, right? Which kind of has to do with this, but how you're
Mhm.
organizing your schedule, and take me into how organization and order, how important they are to you. Do they feel pretty central to how you work and how you process?
Yes, definitely, like right up front and center. And I think I didn't even realize that for a long time. And it's interesting because I work sometimes with some of my other friends, or we have a group chat about how we're planning our days or whatever it might be. And some people see my organization and I think they're like overwhelmed and horrified, like at the same time. Because they're like, what are you doing? But for me, like I have to have it laid out. Otherwise, my brain cannot rest almost.
Hmm.
Like it has to be mapped out. So for me, what that looks like in my day to day is that either Friday afternoon or Sunday evening, I'll sit down and make a list of all of the things that I want to accomplish for the next week,
Hmm.
and I'll start to organize them. So I'll go through and I'll think about, how much time I think they're going to take me to do those different tasks. I'll organize them by day, like where do they fit, depending when I have calls or not. And then I'll actually put them all into my calendar as meeting appointments
Hmm.
so that I have, the time scheduled for them. Because for me to start my week, like not knowing what I'm doing, I don't know if it's possible.
I feel similarly. That feels very J, the judging type, that
Mm-hmm.
structure. And then having that structure allows us to feel that sense of closure. So we can check the box
Yeah.
and we can finish the appointment. And so that's cool. How about your workspace? Because we know that you pay attention to the external cues and you like organization. And so, do you have any specific tendencies around how you organize your physical space?
I usually work from home, so I don't have a separate office.
Mhm.
I work in our living room space, and I actually choose to work there because we have a lot of windows in that space, so it's
Mhm.
really like light and bright. I mean, depending on the weather, of course,
Mhm.
but it gives me more energy to be in that type of environment. So do usually set myself up there, and I do always have a notebook and my planner next to me
Mhm.
with my computer.
Yeah. I think this probably extends to all sentinel types. You all probably have such intricate, interesting, brilliant ways to organize your stuff that is so natural to you that you
That I
just
don't realize to
do
like
it.
tell you. Yeah.
Like, on the flip side, there are personality types that they're so unorganized, but because organization literally holds no weight for them, that it doesn't matter, and they don't even
Yeah.
realize because it's just not part of their awareness. But we all have that differently. So that's that's so cool. when it comes to organization and knowing that having your ducks in a row is important to you, have you ever felt that pressure to not use organization as a tool? And does it ever feel like you're too organized, or someone might have made you feel like, can we just get to work? Like, does anyone try to rush you through that?
Yes, because if I understand everything, like if it's organized in my brain, then I'm like, okay, go. And I can
Mhm.
like execute so clearly and quickly. But yes, I've definitely had a lot of encounters with people that are not like that. And then it seems like I'm either stalling or procrastinating. And really, I have to just explain to them, like, no, I'm just trying to like be organized. Like I have to be organized first before I can go to the next step. Because it can look like I'm like wasting time, right? Like, I mean, for all the work that I do to organize, but I find that I'm pretty efficient on the other side, like once I get through the organization and planning part.
Right. It would be more of a waste of time for you not to invest the time in organization, right? Because if you move
Right.
into something with your brain kind of still jumbled and not orderly, then you're wasting that time. So I want to underline this for the listeners to remind them, if they are part of the Sentinel tribe, especially if you're an ESFJ, organization is not a procrastination technique for you. It is for some of us. It is, because we don't all need to start with organization. Some people will try to rush you through that because they don't think like you and they don't care about organization. But I really encourage you to honor that part of yourself. Don't rush through the organization part. It's not a procrastination technique when it comes to you. And it's some of the best work that you'll ever do, because then it allows you to bring your absolute best energy to the rest of the project. So thanks for giving us that permission and helping us, especially helping people who are part of the Sentinel tribe, feel like, okay, I'm not the only one. It's really
Yeah.
helpful to hear that.
Yeah, no, because otherwise I would be all over the place. I mean, I even remember in meetings for corporate, like if I was facilitating a workshop or something, like I needed to be structured and know how I was mapping out our action items or our notes,
Mhm.
like whatever they were. Like I needed to know that in advance. Or like, at the start of the meeting, I had to like figure some of that out because otherwise I couldn't quickly put things where they need to go if I wasn't organized with it first.
Right. So good. Okay. So now I'd love to dig into this third thing that I hear. Originally at the beginning of the episode, I said two, and then we started talking about self care, which is, that was kind of like an aside. But
Sure.
now,
No, yeah.
hey, bonus, we get three things that ESFJs really bring to the table here. The third thing that I would love to dive into is this topic of niching. So essentially, listeners, what I mean by that is I think that it's common marketing advice to identify who you are best positioned to help. So, who your ideal client is, and then niche into that target audience as much as you possibly can. So, how can you focus on delivering and serving to a small, very specific subset of the population? And what Mary and I originally started talking about in our side conversation, and then also what I've heard from other ESFJs, is this whole idea of niching really hits a chord with you. Like, can you take us into that, Mary? Like, when someone advises niching and getting super specific on who you and your business need to help, what happens for you? How do you hear that?
My back goes up. I don't it's super uncomfortable because it just feels extremely unnatural to me, very honestly. So it's probably one of the pieces of advice that I fight against the most. I want people to come together. Like I understand the concept of like knowing who you're talking to
Hmm.
and all of that. I do, but at the same time it's hard for me because then I always feel like I'm leaving somebody out, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
which is definitely a struggle for me.
Yeah, you're naturally everybody's friend. Like, you are the person at the party who is going to be the first one to notice the outcast and the first one to welcome them into a group and make sure that they feel like they're a part of something. So, if that's you naturally showing up in the world, and then the advice is to shut everybody out except this one small subset of the population, that's probably not going to feel good. Like, that's out of
Right.
alignment. So how do we do
Right.
how have you worked with this? Worked against it? Like, what has that looked like for you?
So over time, I mean, you could even say for my community, right? Because it's for moms building businesses, that already doesn't apply to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Very honestly, I fought that for a while too, thinking should it just be like a larger entrepreneurial group, for
Mm-hmm.
example? But I do recognize, like, as I'm going through this period of my life, that there is a lot to the fact of like being a mom and building a business. And there's just certain things that other people like might have a hard time to relate to.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I've chosen to like be okay with that, I guess I would say, is just the fact that I know from firsthand experience and I'm going through that myself. So it's very relatable to me. And so I know who I'm serving with that. But I've had people tell me to niche down within that
Mm-hmm.
and do a group for a specific type of entrepreneur, like a certain type of business owner. They say, okay, they're a mom and a business owner, but what else? And I'm like, what do you mean, what else? Like, that's enough right there. I already feel like I'm like, I already feel so specific. So I have had challenges on that. And to me, it's really been having like the belief in myself that this is what I'm meant to be doing. And like, this feels right to me for now,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of owning that and knowing who I'm helping. And yes, I can help a service-based business and a product-based business. Like it doesn't have to be one type. I can help a small business that has some employees. I can help a solopreneur. Like it doesn't have to be only one type.
Mm-hmm.
And truly, I believe like having that diversity, it helps everybody because you get different perspectives. I mean, I have members in the group, like one member might have a few employees and the other one's on her own, but her corporate experience from where she was before was something that helped the person that has employees, so you just like, there's so much that you can leverage from people. And I think we're always so focused on like the negatives or what we're not good at and all that kind of stuff. But really, when you bring people together in a positive way, like it helps everyone. So why leave people out?
Well, and I think, again, light bulbs here. When someone recommends niching your focus, I think that's really great advice for someone who does want to be the center of their brand and everyone is coming to them to get advice.
Mm-hmm.
Simply
Right.
because, like, how could one person support all different types of people, right?
Right.
However,
Agree.
you have a different situation. And I think ESFJs could utilize their personality type not only in how they market, but also how they structure their business. And I think you're giving them a really great example of this. The people that are paying you and are part of this paid membership, they're not relying just on you to fix all their problems.
Right.
They're able to rely on everybody. And so diversity within that can be really amazing and actually an advantage to everyone involved. So the combination of
Super
these two
powerful.
things, the
Yeah.
combination of the collective support and your willingness to allow lots of different types of mom entrepreneurs in actually strengthens the group and therefore your business as opposed to weakens it.
Right. Because I'm already making the connections with everybody. Why wouldn't
Right.
I want them to all be together?
Yeah, that's some good stuff. That gathering of people, when you can pair that with diversity, some really amazing things can happen and it doesn't all land on Mary's shoulders. And listeners, if you're an ESFJ, it doesn't all have to land on your shoulders. This is a gathering, a collective effort. Oh, I love that so much. Okay. So, all right, we got to hit on some really big hitting topics: self care, organization, and niching. It's amazing. I cannot wait to hear how the listeners are resonating with this, what they hear, what this gives them permission to do. I'm almost scared to look at my Instagram DMs when this episode goes live because I know that it's going to be out of control. Amazing. So, take us into the vision for the Transitions Collective this next year. Where are we headed with this?
So my word of the year actually is amplify.
Ooh.
And that's because I do want to get the word out more about the community. So I'm launching 3 times this year, winter and then late spring, early summer, and then again in the fall for membership. And really it's about growing the community because I think it's that much more powerful the more people that are there and supporting each other. But that's also a challenge for me because it means I have to put myself out there more. I'm fine with being a leader in certain circumstances. And I recognize that's my role with this community. I'm the leader of the community, but putting myself out there on behalf of the community is something that I'm taking on this year so that it can be better for everyone that's inside it.
Could I give you a little tiny bit
Oh,
of advice
yes.
there?
Oh, yeah, sure.
When,
Yeah.
of course, when you're launching, there will be that element of, well, who's launching this thing? So you will have to show up, right? There is that element.
Right.
I've been watching this happen in real life, in a real life client situation. And when an ESFJ can show up talking more about their members and their member stories, not necessarily results. Like, I'm not talking about the
Mm-hmm.
kind of results that an ENTJ or an ENTP is positioned to deliver, but more around shining a beautiful spotlight on their members and telling their
Yep.
story, or even allowing the member to tell their story. Whoa, like the
Mm-hmm.
power. You want to talk about amplify, like amplifying the
Yeah.
power. I'm like, my right hand is like turning up the volume switch, It's like, that is so powerful. So as you go into your next launch season, I wonder what kind of awesomeness can come out of focusing on that. And you're probably already
Well, that's
doing a
great.
lot of that.
Well, that feels aligned for me because, I
Yeah.
actually just rolled out a member questionnaire recently. And so now I'm starting to put that together to highlight people
Beautiful.
and, and have them share. Because it's very true. I love shining a light on other people. So that's a
Oh.
great point.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, so where can the listeners find you online and support this vision? And I can guarantee there are some mom entrepreneurs who have just loved and just like melted into your story and what you're doing, and so they're like, "Wait, I want to join." So where can they go to do that?
Oh, that's amazing. So they can go to thetransitionscollective.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram with the same handle at The Transitions Collective.
Perfect. Oh, man. Awesome. Okay. Mary, thank you so much for being here. Listeners, go find her. Go find her over at thetransitionscollective.com. And I'm going to catch you back here next week on the podcast where I'll be interviewing Kate Kordsmeyer, who is the blogger behind the popular Root and Revel blog. Have you ever heard of it? It's a health and wellness food blog I've been following for a long time. I cannot wait for you to hear this interview with Kate. And she's also the creator of the Six Figure Blog Academy. And she also happens to be an INFJ. And I know I have a ton of INFJs in the audience. So stay tuned and I'll talk to you then. Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Marketing Personalities Podcast. Now it's time to connect your marketing strategy to your personality type. Go to marketingpersonalities.com/MPP to download your marketing personality type full report. Use the code MPP at checkout to get $10 off. And that's a super special code for podcast listeners as a way to say thank you for being here. In your full report, you'll learn about your personality type, how it relates to the work you do, what your best marketing strategy includes so you can start implementing it right away, what your worst marketing strategy includes so you can avoid it, and so much more. Go to marketingpersonalities.com/MPP to get your full report and use the code MPP at checkout to receive $10 off your purchase. And one more thing before you skip on to the next podcast. Would you please share this episode with your entrepreneur friends who also need to feel good about their marketing strategies? Take a quick screenshot of your podcast app right now and share it out via text, Facebook, or my favorite, Instagram. Remember to tag me at Marketing Personalities in the photo so I can be sure to send you a huge high five and thank you for sharing the love. This podcast is edited and produced by the Podcast Engineers. They're pretty great, and you can find them at podcastengineers.com. That's all for now. Thanks as always for listening, and I'll catch you back here next week on the Marketing Personalities Podcast. Love ya. Bye.